fans. This is the Rope-A-Dope Radio Podcast. I am your host, Chris Carlson. We're live, per usual, on a Wednesday, 6 on the West, 9 on the East, and 2 UK time. And it feels good to say those exact times if you've been listening to the podcast lately. As you know, life gets in the way like it does for everybody else. And haven't been able to do the show exactly the live show anyway when I've wanted to. So I definitely apologize for those people that maybe in the UK or on the East Coast that it's affecting their live listen. But overall, as far as listenership, it doesn't really affect that many people. So don't get used to it, though. Don't get used to it because it's going to continue for a little while longer. And like I said, I may change to Tuesday. It kind of matters. Anyway, enough about me and my life, right? Let's talk about the show. Now, we got an interesting show for you. We had a busy fight weekend. If you look at it like on paper, right, the main events were underwhelming as main events. Ortiz, Alexander for a Fox show in prime time. Kind of underwhelming, right? It would have been just fine on a Saturday night on FS1. Same with the Showtime. Garcia, Rios, right? On paper, kind of underwhelming. Same with the Beltran, Moses, because, that's a nice fight to have on, but it's not necessarily a main event fight. However, they gave us entertainment. They did give us action. So we will start by reviewing the weekend. Like I said, it was a busy, busy weekend in the sport. No doubt about it. Wasn't full of highly important fights, but it did give us entertainment. There were bell ringers, right? We call them bell ringers here at Rope-A-Dope Radio. You're going to DVR it. You're going to maybe give it a chance and see if you like it, that type of thing. That we got action. We got action. It definitely didn't. It kind of overachieved, but the bar wasn't set high, right? No doubt about it. And the ratings bear that out, right? The ratings bear that out. We'll go over a little bit of that. I'm not going to go too deep on that, but yeah, the ratings definitely weren't good, and that's no surprise if you look at competition with the Olympics and the NBA. And also, like I said, on paper, the main events didn't fire up anybody. Like, on a whole, anyway. I mean, obviously, some fans are always going to at least check it out. I'm one of them. But, yeah, it kind of, it went over expectations, no doubt about it. Obviously, Danny Garcia scored a highlight TKO of Brandon Rios in a fun fight to watch, right? Rios, a lot of debate. Was he spent? Should he be even in the ring? I actually think that he looked all right. He did better than maybe some thought he would. We'll definitely break that down. And also with the Showtime triple header, Benavidez took care of business this time around. Looked really, really good. And he is a young – something is up with my mic. Keeps dropping. Anyway, so we'll talk about that card. Of course, the ESPN card as well. We'll mention that. Beltran and Moises. A good two-way spirited fight. It was definitely a good fight, no doubt about it. So we'll talk about that card. And the Ortiz-Alexander fight, the crossroad fight that probably was the best fight of the weekend in my mind as far as action, and it was competitive. Now, I don't think it should have been a draw, but it was a good fight. I thought it was a very good fight. And, of course, it's funny that I'm last with this one. George Groves, Chris Eubank Jr., part of the semifinals of the World Boxing Super Series. We're going to talk about it first, but it came in last as far as action. It really stunk out the place, obviously. Not a good fight. Yeah, just not a good fight. I mean, there's just no way around it. We can't sugarcoat that shit. You know what I mean? It just wasn't. It really, really wasn't. It there were some spots where, it got more interesting, but on paper, clearly amongst the avid follower, the hardcore boxing fan, that was the one that people were looking forward to. And like I said, it definitely underwhelmed. There were some moments of exchanges and fun stuff. It was kind of a roughhouse fight, but so we'll start with that. We'll also look forward to this weekend. One of the weekend's fights got messed up from an injury. We'll update you that if you haven't heard about that. And also the HBO triple header. That's right. It's something we're starting to say about HBO. There's a lot of things negative, and for good reason, that we're saying about HBO, being critical of them in the last, probably since 2016, right? But one thing, they have been giving us more triple headers, which I like, because at least you got a chance. You got 3 fights. Maybe 2 out of the 3 will turn out, or maybe one of them, 2 of them will be just whatever, but one of them will really live up to it. We got ourselves Superfly 2. The super flyweight division is hot right now, as we know. Rung Vasai coming off a KO of Roman Gonzalez. He's hot, right? He's going against Juan Estrada, which I'm looking forward to that fight. We'll talk about the undercard fight as well. Nietes and Regvecco and Quatros and Arroyo. Could be interesting in the ring, right? Entertaining. But really, as far as, it's kind of close to a 50-50, I'd have to say. Once they put this thing on the schedule, I was really looking forward to it. And just coming off that September card, I was really happy that they not only had the card for the little guys, right? But they're continuing it. So that's pretty cool. We don't get a ton of great news in boxing all the time, although we've been spoiled lately. We've been spoiled a little bit lately, but we'll break that down. We'll preview it, predict it. Estrada of Rung Vasai. I like that fight a lot. You can make a case for both guys. News-wise, we'll fill you in on a couple of things. I already mentioned the World Boxing Super Series is actually going kickboxing. It's turned into the kickboxer versus the boxer. I'm talking late substitute, but we'll talk a little bit about that anyway. But as far as news goes, we'll fill you in, update you on the Golden Boy, Top Rank, HBO, ESPN, Lomachenko, Linares negotiations, or I guess you could say lack thereof now. We found out early last week, we talked about it on the show last episode, how this is going to be some issues. They're going to have a problem with this date, this May 12th date that Top Rank is holding on. So we'll fill you in. Actually, Steve Kim, he's not coming on the show, but Steve Kim just actually posted something on boxingscene.com, so we'll keep you updated with that situation. Couple other items out there, no doubt about it. This whole Wilder and Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, everybody wants to see that this summer. And as boxing fans, we have, we're a little reluctant to get excited about it next. I guess there's more news out now from the press conference yesterday from Eddie Hearn that it's not necessarily that good if you're trying to see the fight next. It does, however, look like they're trying to make the fight here. And when I say here, obviously the United States on pay-per-view. So I guess that's good overall, if you think about it, because Anthony Joshua and Wilder, I do think, could sell on pay-per-view based off highlights, the commercial, the overall records. I really think they could sell this thing. I'm not saying it's going to break the record. I mean, even I don't even know if it hit 1 million, to be honest with you. But if you even, whatever, we're not going to get into pay-per-view numbers. But Eddie Hearn has plans, and they don't involve Deontay Wilder next. A lot of it comes from the 50-50. Is this them just leading us on with this stuff and getting Wilder over here to fight the Barclays? We'll fill you in a little bit more. Also, I'll play some audio about Richard Schaefer, or not about Richard Schaefer, but from Richard Schaefer in an interview he did for Seconds Out. Radio Raheem, always doing a great job there overall. He's every place, right? It kind of just expands on the 50-50, right? And most people think on the surface 50-50 is a joke. Like, Wilder can't get 50-50, and I'm one of those guys. I'm one of those people that think he shouldn't get 50-50. But maybe it's not as wide of a split as some people say. And so we'll just get a take from that. Some other news, retirements, yada, yada, yada. But why don't we start with, and actually, if this is your first time listening to the Rope It Up Radio podcast, forgot to mention this. Obviously, we stream pretty much live every Wednesday. Sometimes it's leaking in the Thursday morning, right? Of late anyway. We do it right here at blogtalkradio.com/Rope It Up Radio. It streams live and archives. It's kind of the headquarters, the home base. You can also check it out at Apple Podcasts, a.k.a. iTunes. Feel free to rate and review the show there. Player FM is another great outlet. Stitcher, Spreaker, a lot of different outlets, right? And also, we are part of the gruelingtruth.net. And the gruelingtruth.net, you should check out the website. We're part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network. It's heavy on boxing, football, and basketball. Other sports too, but those are the main ones. Obviously, we have the College Ball Show / NBA playoffs and NBA topical stuff where it's college football, college basketball, and NBA playoffs and whatnot into the summer, free agency and all that. That's part of the Rope It Up Radio as well. But the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network is also available on iHeartRadio. So those who get their podcasts and listen to a lot of different stations and whatnot, check it out at iHeartRadio, or just go ahead and visit thegruelingtruth.net. That's thegruelingtruth.net. They got a great sponsor over there, mybookie.ag. That's mybookie.ag. And big shouts out to I believe his name is Josh Smith from Ireland. Shouts out to you. He turned 30 yesterday. He hit me up on Twitter. 30 years old, man. You got your whole life ahead of you. Josh Smith from Ireland, man. Shouts out to you. And also, met somebody yesterday, I believe, and I'm horrible with names, so don't be mad when I see you again. But I met somebody that listens to the podcast. Definitely appreciate everybody that listens to it. But Patrick, I believe his name was Patrick. Patrick, if your name's not Patrick, I'm sorry. But I believe it's Patrick. Either way, real cool guy. It's always cool to talk to people about a variety of stuff, and we'll have more conversations about fights and whatnot as these fights heat up. But shouts out to you, Patrick, man. Thanks for listening. I actually ran into him yesterday at my place of business, so appreciate it. Yeah. So anyway, let's start with the high-profile fight of the weekend. And we all know what that is, right? We all know what that is. And I guess this weekend is a reminder that all us professional matchmakers on Twitter and in the boxing forums and whatnot, you know, it's just a slap in the face of reality. And I say that from time to time, any given year, right? That I'm starting to get really sick of people that think they're professional promoters and matchmakers on Twitter, right? Because it's cool to have your opinion. I mean, God, that's what it's all about. But when you go over the top sometimes, like you talk about venue, and some people won't like the damn fight and rip the fight and won't even watch it because of the venue. It's like, dog, what? At least rip the fight because it sucks or the matchup sucks or whatever. Um, but this is a weekend where you're like, matchmaking wise, like I mentioned, the Groves Eubank Jr. on paper seemed like the 50-50 by far, and it still was, of course, the most important fight of the weekend. But it looked like, all right, dude, like this is a good ass fight. But we're talking about on paper. And I think nowadays, the last couple of years, especially since the PBC, came into fruition, but overall, just social media age, a lot of people just kind of go with their first gut instinct on a fight, and that's how they judge it from here on out. I really think that, and I think this weekend is a perfect example of it because, like I mentioned, we're going to talk about the other main events. On paper, yeah, I wasn't pumping up this weekend. If people didn't watch, I totally get it. I totally get it. But if you didn't watch and you're saying, that the fights sucked, that's not true either. That's not true either. You can rip a fight, but if it turned out to be entertaining, then you got to at least give it a little credit. And just like the flip side of this is the most, 50-50 fight turned out to be a stinker. It had its competitive moments, a couple of flailing exchanges, but overall the fight sucked. My guy Kev, KH on Twitter, he said it perfectly. He's like, this whole master class thing from George Groves, I keep hearing, and this is before I saw the fight too, because I had to work a little earlier on Saturday. I couldn't catch the fight live. I saw a couple of the opening rounds, then I shut it down, went to work, watched it a little later. But yeah, this whole master class thing from Groves was silly. First of all, he was coming forward in the fight a lot of the time. Then he went on the move more, but I wouldn't call that a master class. He didn't look great. Now, some of it, both of them were just inactive. And some of it is, well, he's going to be, especially when he was on the outside, or at least just maybe he was standing his ground, but he was still kind of on the outside or on the edge of the pocket, so to speak, using a little bit of movement, but maybe just distance, right? Eubank wasn't really doing shit, so he could counter and all that too. So, of course, that played into it. I'm not ripping on Groves. He had to do what he had to do, but this whole master class thing, I didn't see any class in the fight, to be honest with you. But just going down a couple of these rounds, I had Groves out early, basically on a jab. Left hook, a decent right in the second round. There was a jump hook. Sounds like a basketball term, a jump hook by Eubank. He landed some, but really just a few jabs. I think a shot late stole the round in the third round. But I had Groves up by 3 out the gate, right? Then I thought Eubank actually made a tad bit of a run. He landed a right hand late in the fourth, couple of jump hooks, and that gave him it. Now, for the first, 6 rounds? I don't even know. Probably it'll pop up in my notes here. He couldn't land his best punch, the uppercut, Eubank. He couldn't land the uppercut for shit. He really couldn't. He was having problems. He was having problems landing that uppercut. By the 5th round, he was cut on his right eye. Kind of got worse. There were a lot of headbutts, a lot of grinding, of heads and foreheads. I remember later in the fight, Groves just did the whole kind of shoe shine, I guess you could say, with the top of his forehead. And trust me, I know all about foreheads. I got a big-ass forehead. But yeah, I gave the 4th and the 5th to Eubank. 6th I gave to Groves. It was starting to get really ugly. It went from boring and sloppy to ugly in holding. Then it got better later in the fight. I'll give it credit there. But the 7th, you could see by the mid rounds, like I mentioned, Groves was on the move more. I gave Eubank the 7th, but he was just walking. He was like following, not cutting off the ring. I thought he landed some decent hooks. That's the only reason why I gave him that round. Like I said, some of these rounds, just not much happened. So it's like, okay, so what happened again? And sometimes you can get caught in that Sugar Ray Leonard last 30 seconds where you see a shot and that's what you remember, you know? It could have been like a 10-10 round for oh wait, hold on. I jumped, didn't I? Seventh, yeah, eighth, I gave to Groves. He landed a decent jab early. I'm literally saying, yeah, a little decent jab early. Actually, that's when you started to see some basically like wild exchanges, and not the positive wild, like, oh man, that was wild. No, like just wild shots being thrown and mostly missed for the most part. Now, you could give Eubank Jr. the ninth, or you could do 10-10. You could see, though, that Eubank was starting to bleed pretty bad there. Definitely, from a lot of headbutts in there, too. But he actually started finally landing an uppercut. And I thought he got to the body in that round, so I'd probably favor it there. Groves is still on his jab and right hand. I thought he did that in the 10th. All right. There was some roughhouse finally some clean shots in the 10th. Gave that to Groves the 11th. Jab and hold. He had his Klitschko on. I did Groves, and there was some uppercuts. That 11th round was close. Just haymaker jump hooks. Some decent lands down the stretch. But you could see Groves totally, dislocated his shoulder. So that was pretty crazy. You could see when it happened, too. The second it happened, like, oh, man. He even threw, like, a half a punch with it. But, yeah, I think, like, Eubank, his jump hooks, landed a little better in that round. So I gave it about a 7-5. I know a lot of people were saying, like, 10-2 Groves. I didn't see that. I'll give you 8-4. I can go 8-4 with some swing rounds. But the swing rounds, it's like, it's a weird term because it wasn't usually when you think of swing rounds, like, yeah, dude, that was two-way competitive. Who knew? I don't know who won, that type of shit. That wasn't the case. That wasn't the case at all. And, this is how boxing goes sometimes. You expect a 50-50 fight. And like I said, I had a decent scorecard. I thought Groves won, but it wasn't a master class. I guess that's what I'm getting at. It definitely was not a master class whatsoever. But Eubank had something to do with that, no doubt. So, yeah, that's that fight. Now, there's a couple of issues. Callum Smith, his opponent, Bramer, he pulled out with what, the flu, a virus, which is, it must be pretty bad. I know he came down from 175, so maybe in this time, you think flu, you think loss of weight. But then again, if you're not working out, you're not going to lose the normal weight that you would, especially on fight week. That's when a lot of the weight comes off, right? So, I don't know. I don't know, man. It's a little weird. It is a little weird. Not to say he's faking it, because he would have had the home field advantage, but you just wonder, I wonder if Groves' injury, because he got, he messed up his shoulder. They're looking at some dates. Right now, it was the O2 Arena in London, where, the super middleweight final of this World Boxing Super Series should be. It's a great venue for it. But Groves is they're going to just kind of feel it out here in the next couple of weeks. Maybe they got to go in the ocean and let the ocean salt heal it like Manny Pacquiao. I don't know. But it's hard not to think of the backroom stuff when it comes to this. Now, I'm not saying this dude, I'm not saying this guy's faking it. Because like I said, it's hard to make weight, and especially when you were a light heavyweight. You were 175. You're making 168 for this tournament. He's not a young dude either. So if he has the full on flu, and right now I don't know how it's going on there in Europe, but the flu is pretty freaking bad here. And we lead the league in chemicals, so our immune system is pretty damn good, and it's still pretty rough here right now for that. So I don't know. I don't know. It just seems kind of weird that, I'm not saying, well, Groves clearly didn't fake his injury. But I don't know. You just wonder if they're like, well, shit, Groves isn't going to be able to fight. So let's save this dude and he'll be there and he wouldn't have lost. I don't know. But either way, they got a kickboxer in. He's 13-0 as a professional boxer. So that's their guy they had on standby. A former kickboxer. Actually, I shouldn't say former. I don't know if he's one of those guys that compete in both, or if he was a kickboxer and now he's 13-0. I don't know who he's fighting though. I'll just admit I'm not saying they pulled this guy out of nowhere, but I think they pulled this guy out of nowhere. Because from my understanding, don't quote me on this, but from my understanding that he fought just a little bit ago, I think. So I don't know. Short notice. What are you going to do? The week of, you're not going to get some great opponent. They did say though that they would have guys fight on the undercard, and they had substitutes. So maybe someone pulled out and this is all they could find. I don't know. Maybe this dude did fight a little bit ago. They couldn't get him opponent for the undercard of this, but he fought a couple weeks ago, so he's fresh. But that was supposed to be for the next. So he's fresh and on schedule for the next fight, not the week of. But hey, that's what happens. So anyway, and that's what makes it fishy. You're like, okay, Groves. Wonder if Groves can't be in it. Then they probably want, this to be the main event, to be the final. So we'll see. Maybe I don't know. He had to have been pretty damn sick. Let's just put it that way, because they're making some dough in this tourney. Just because it doesn't have a network deal over here in the States, they're making dough. If you put it to the average boxer on even premium cable here, they're making some dough. So he had to be pretty freaking sick, or hey, I'll make even a little more dough in the finals. I don't know. I hope George Groves can compete in the final, though. I do hope that. But anyway, so that fight, we're not going to – I was really interested in that fight, too, based off how Bramer, he looked good in his last fight. So, and Callum Smith undefeated. I'm not going to call him a prospect, but he's at that contender prospect level where he hasn't really been tested yet, So I was really interested in it. But anyway, that's that. The fight itself, it sucked. If you look at the punch stats, Groves landed 117, only threw 398. And it wasn't like a clean 398 where it was like didn't get hit and then just outclass somebody like people are saying out there. The jab controlled it, really. They just got a good zone coverage for that jump hook. That jump hook, they zoned out, they double teamed them, and that's basically what he did. But it was 117 to 92, 421. So they're the come forward fighter for a good chunk of the fight was Eubank. But yeah, definitely didn't live up to it. The scorecards read 115, 113. 116, 112, and 117, 112. Did I write that down? There could have been a knockdown, by the way. I think it was a jab right hand, and Eubank was kind of crunched down, and there's potential that could have been a knockdown. I meant to mention that. So yeah, it is what it is. We'll move on. Hopefully. Hopefully Groves can come back and we'll see. Because if they do the draft, in the draft, for those who don't know, they did for the World Boxing Super Series, they called it the draft, was it the gala? And they do, they set up the fighters, they rank them, they seed the top 4. There's 8 guys, and you get to pick. You get to pick who. So the number 1 guy goes first, he gets to pick, that type of thing. So that was in like the second week of July. So if they stay anywhere on that schedule, which I can't see them going too much further if they're planning on, starting in September again. I don't know. I don't know how much further they can push it back. Then again, maybe they push it back to July and they do it all in one, and they do it the night of. So it kind of anticipates for the next year. Maybe that could work. I don't know. And then you got the O2 Arena. Maybe they had to switch venues. I really don't know, but we'll see. We will see. Anyway, that wraps that up. Let's go on to the Showtime card. Caleb Plant. Nope, that's the wrong card. Wrong card. Showtime card. Danny Garcia versus Brandon Bam Bam Rios. Better than expected, in my mind. Better than expected. I was hoping the matchup on paper, like I mentioned, these 3 main events that we're going to talk about next, none of them really stood out as anything to anticipate. So the casual fan, the common fan, even the hardcore and avid fan, you're not going to tell your friend to tell a friend. You know what I mean? You're just not. And I don't blame you. And that's what we were talking about last week. But as a boxing fan, I was hoping that they give us entertainment. And I think they did. In fact, I know they did. However, it took a while for it to be more of a 2-sided fight, because Garcia was landing a lot of right hands through the first handful of rounds. I actually only gave Rios the 6th round. I guess you could have what is it, the 2nd round, something like that. Maybe you could give Rios that one. I don't know. But you could see Rios trying to warm up that left hook. He's trying to warm up in general, I'd say. You could see in the 2nd round he started bringing the pressure more, though. He started cutting the ring and actually getting, Rios on, or I'm sorry, Rios was getting Danny Garcia on the rope. And then he started getting to the body, his left hook. It was a close round, the 2nd round. I thought the cleaner shots was Garcia. I gave it to Garcia, but I noticed just, on Twitter, and I believe even Steve Farhood, I think he gave him the 2nd, if I'm not mistaken. 3rd round, Garcia at that point, he started landing some hard combinations. Big right hand with like 70 seconds left. Now, Rios, he actually started finally landing his overhand right to go with the left hook. And this is something he started doing better too, is he started landing the uppercut, because he started, like I mentioned, he's starting to cut the ring and actually sticking Danny on the ropes so he could get inside. It took him a while, though, because he was getting hit with a lot of flush shots. I mean, that's kind of what happens to Rios, right? But, yeah, Garcia, I gave him the 4th and 5th as well. Right hands, really starting to land some shots where you're like, oh, shit, that was clean. And a couple of them, like for a while, Rios was taking them just fine like he normally does. But then he kind of would get stopped in his tracks and even kind of get knocked off balance. But I thought by the mid-round, 5th and 6th, you could see him really getting into the fight and landed sometimes bigger shots. And it wasn't just getting him on the rope, landing a couple of shots, and then it would go in the middle of the ring again. He was actually landing shot after shot. I still gave the 5th round, though, to just the early right hand, and then he started really dominating, I thought, in that that fifth round later. I did give Rios, like I said, the sixth though. He did work early and late. He landed a really good uppercut, some left hooks, even some jabs in there. And we know Rios, when he's on his game anyway, he actually has a pretty good jab. So he was just steady working, and I thought he won that round. That was it though. Rios in the seventh and eighth kind of got decent starts, but then the combinations and then kind of on the move, Garcia really started laying into him. Same with the eighth round. Garcia early would do some, late would do something, and just I just thought overall landed the better shot. And then at the 53-second mark, a counter shot, a hard right hand landed picture perfect. And it took a while. He got hit, and it was one of those shots when you see it in slow motion, when you see it, there's a still shot out there too, where you can see exactly where it landed, and it kind of tipped him over. It was much like that James Toney knockout of, who was that, Williams? Was that Williams? Who was that? In a sense, it was kind of like the not as crazy as the, Michael second to none, because that was a wrap, whereas Rios got up. But it had, I remember them saying that. I said, yeah, that's true. That it is very much like that Toney knockdown or knockout shot, that great punch. And then I saw somebody, I think it was on Twitter, do a side-by-side. And then it was like, oh, shit, dude. It was basically the same punch. So Rios got hit, right? And he went down. He kind of got, it's like a tree getting chopped down. He kind of did that weird tilt where his neck just like, we're going this way. And then the body follows. But when he hit the deck, he stayed there for a little bit, like head on the canvas. And when you do that, it's like it's like a yellow flag for the ref. It's a cautionary thing where they're like, all right, dude, you're not really getting up right now. Like, what's up? In that sense. Then when he was trying to get up, he did struggle to get up. I mean, you could say he's a warrior. You could say all this stuff about him, and I'll agree with you. But he was having problems getting up. Let's not, mix that. He definitely was. So then when he got up, he didn't look that good, right? And, of course, you're not going to look good because you just got, rocked. But then when the ref's like, all right, let's see, and he kind of gave him that bounce. Those fighters, the bounce where you see him bouncing a lot at the beginning of rounds or at the beginning of the fight. But it didn't look good. It didn't look good. And I thought he made the right call. I thought he did. And Robert Garcia thought the same thing. He was actually in the process of stopping it, but the ref didn't even see him because he was to the back of him, I believe. So all in all, I understand the warrior aspect, but you can't have it both ways either, people. You can't have it both ways. And I'm not talking about Rios. He's a fighter. He said he was winning the fight. Clearly he wasn't winning the fight. He was just a lot more competitive than people were giving him credit for, like, lead-in wise. So I thought it was a good stoppage. And what I mean by you can't have it both ways is you can't say the dude's slurring his words, or you can't say he shouldn't be fighting anymore, but then he should have kept going in this fight. You could say it's a free country, but it really doesn't line up, and so I understand there is that sentiment of let this warrior go out, on his shield, and I get it. But the way the knockout happened, or I guess you could say knocked down, because it was a TKO actually, because he got up. So when people say this is a knockout of the year, no, I don't think so. I don't think it's a knockout of the year because he got up. He got up. So to me, it could be right now the knockdown of the year, Now, I know that he didn't continue, so technically it's a TKO, but you know what I mean. He didn't get counted out, so it can't be the KO of the year in my mind anyway. One of the best shots probably of the year, though. Well, for sure so far, but it'll probably hold up as a clean-ass shot. But anyway, Danny did what he had to do. He hasn't fought in almost a year. This was the perfect fight for him, as we knew. There's times where he looked really good in that right hand. It took him a little while, both of them really, to warm up, but he looked really good at times. Other times it looked like the Danny Garcia we know, you know? Danny has a way of, I think a lot of people went a little over the top on his performance. Like, I'm talking negatively. Like, I think people are like, God, you know, Rios is washed. He couldn't, like, Thurman would have knocked him out in 6. It's like, dude, he knocked him out, though, in the 9th. Like, I didn't think Danny looked that bad. And the reason why I say that is, well, he didn't. He landed a lot of clean shots. He fought smart, went to the body, went to the head, countered well. Look at the shot he ended the fight with. And he fights a lot of people close. I mean, go look at his fights, dude. He fights a lot of people close, or at least close within the round, even if he's winning. So I thought he looked pretty good considering he hadn't fought in almost a year. Brandon Rios, I thought he looked good too. We talked about how he's in shape. We talked about how it looks like he's got this little edge to him. We talked about, you know, how he's literally saying he's on weight midweek. I think that was pretty evident. Now, he's well past his prime, but I still think there's something left. I really do. At the mid-level, the second tier, I still think the next couple of fights, 3-4 fights or something, you know, I think they should build him back, though. I'm not talking about 2 or 3 of those FS1 type opponents. I'm not saying that, like that last one, but I mean, he may need that right now, but then I think, you know, why not let him and Victor Ortiz fight? You know, that type of thing. So I think he looked good. I think he looked much better than what people are saying. Now, I don't think he's washed. And a lot of people say, yeah, but look at Bradley and look at these fights. Like, dog, but that wasn't the same Rios. And I'm not saying this is the 135, 140 Rios. That's not what I'm saying, but you can't look at fights and make one judgment because he wasn't in good shape. He was dying to lose weight. Like the week of, he was dropping 20 pounds and shit. And you could see it clearly in the interviews and all that. So as long as he maintains his weight now, well, first of all, he needs a break, right? And maybe come back in the summer and build back. And then get that tier 2, that Victor Ortiz fight at StubHub or something like that. I wouldn't mind that. I don't want to see him in there with Spence, Thurman, Danny. Well, he just was in there with Danny Porter. I don't want to see that. No. But I'm not going to sit there and take this guy's living away if I think he can compete on that second level where these guys are in similar boats. You know, he needs to fight a guy he needs crossroads fights. That's what he needs. But overall, it was a pretty good fight. Wasn't great. Wasn't bad. I do think they clearly overpriced the tickets. They did get over 6,000 in attendance in Vegas, and the winner's not bad. It's not bad, but you know, I'm sure they comp some solid number. I'd say it could be even $1,000 on this one. And the reason why I say that, and this is the thing with Vegas, sometimes boxing tickets in general, but Vegas, it just seems like, on average, I'm speaking of, because I've seen some inexpensive, you know, priced right or fan-friendly stuff in Vegas before, but they generally over the price of tickets and just be happy with 4,000 or 4,500. You know what I mean? That's usually what happens. Like the tickets were 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. And to me, this type of fight, and that's where the promoters, They go, well, we're gonna get some money from the Mandalay, from the MGM resorts, right? So we get that money, and then we can still price the tickets because we have names on the card. Now they're not stars, but they're names, right? I mean, Danny's different on the west to the east, and actually, if you look at that Garcia Guerrero fight, they ticketed, those prices were like 25, 50, or 50, 100, 200. They priced those right, and they sold like 9, 10,000. So that was smart. But then again, what's your goal? To get 2,000 more people in there, or to make a bigger gate? And that's what sucks about Vegas sometimes, in boxing in general, but especially Vegas. So that and 500 is just the Ticketmaster 500. That doesn't mean, I mean, there's tickets that were for more than that. And you could even see some of the lower stuff in the lower level, closer to the ring, still in the stands. You could see a gap here, like 4 seats not taken and 2 seats not taken, and so you're like, well, those are $450 or whatever. So yeah, they weren't going to sell all those. So I think that they overpriced them, but like I said, that's just how it goes, unfortunately, man, especially in Vegas, But anyway, moving on. The undercard, Ugas and Ray Robinson, Jordanis, I think it's Jordanis, Ugas. And last week we talked about Ugas a little bit. And I'm just happy for this guy. I think it's is it 6 straight wins now, or 5 straight wins? I'm happy for this guy because he was a prospect. He had lost 3 fights in a short amount of time. He started just staying active and taking short notice fights, either from injury, filling in on FS1, or just taking them, just moving on to the next one. And he's built back nicely, man. And it's fun to see these guys. And let me see, I'm looking at my scorecard. I don't think I really gave Robinson a round. Early on, it looked like Ugas was going to close the show right away. Lunging right hand. He did step on his foot on the knockdown, though. But some really fun exchanges the last part. Really, Ray Robinson, I'm going to stop saying that. Robinson, he had a jab, a couple of right hands, but mostly just jab. A lot of hooks, a lot of good hooks and body shots from Ugas. Started really landing the right hand, though. No doubt about it. There was some extra curriculum when it comes to punching after the bell, after the 4th round. And midway through the 5th, there was some really fun exchanges. The counter right hand or the lead right hand, oh my God, it really started doing some damage. And ultimately, counter right hand knocked him down in the 7th. Ugas finished him with a flurry of hooks and roundhouse shots for the TKO. Good showing by Ugas, and now he becomes the mandatory for Spence. And before this, I was thinking, I wonder if he would be the guy that fight Thurman. Because of late, he looks like a puncher. But before, just looking at him and, box wrecking him, if you look at his KOs, he didn't look like much of a puncher. So you wonder if they're thinking, I don't know. It just felt like they're putting him on Showtime, giving him this opportunity, but also it could lead to Spence's mandatory. Now, maybe they'll step aside, oh boy, who was called not long ago, the Mexican kid. Undefeated Mexican fighter. I don't know. You know how these belts work. That dude may take a step aside, and he may step aside twice and be after another, a stay busy moment. Who knows? Maybe Ugas would get the fight. That would be cooler in my mind, but that's not to take away this young kid because I've never seen him fight. So We'll see. But the dude is out of left field, though. But good for Ugas, good performance, no doubt about it. Now, David Benavidez against Ronald Gavril, the rematch. I'll tell you what, man. Benavidez, he really looked good. He went back to looking good, man. Really, he did. Counter right hands, stiff jab, mixing in the uppercut. Really liked his punch variety. He had it all going, man. Combinations, uppercuts. There was an uppercut that staggered him. And I'm speaking of Gavril. I think it's like 30 seconds into the fourth. You could see like somewhere in the middle rounds, he kind of moved it more boxing outside because actually Benavidez was coming forward some, or at least not on the move. Then he started more boxing well, landing some good shots. Gavril probably won a round or two in there. But, you know, that mid-rounds, then the 9th and 10th, you started seeing Benavidez just dominate again. I think it was the 10th round. Yeah, good. He was just more steady, was Gavril. But the body shots started adding up on Benavidez or on Gavril. He was just good. And there's times where Gavril was coming forward in this fight, and he's like, "Why are you moving?" That type of thing that we see a lot, right? And it's like, well, dude, you moved in the first fight. that worked for you. So now Benavidez can't move? Like, which one is it, dog? You know, it's funny when fighters do that. And I understand there's a lot of pride. It's really easy to sit there and rip these fighters that are in front of, you know, an audience and in front of a, you know, they're just laying themselves out there. And a lot of people, when they're embarrassed because they're losing the fight or whatever, they're just not successful. It's real emotional. You know, on a very minor level in high school, you know, one time I got the fight technically stopped. And that means they didn't pin you, but they just kicked your ass for a while, and it hits a point total and it's over. So that shit sucks. I'd rather be in a fight and get caught with a couple punches and it's a wrap, rather than for like 5 minutes just get my ass kicked. But the reason why I bring that up is because I remember that emotion in me. Like it's anger. You're not sad, but it's kind of like a fight, especially when you're a kid, when you're crying, even though you won the fight, but the adrenaline, you're pissed. You're like, what the hell? It just sucks. It's that weird stuff. And people don't really put that in the equation of some of these fighters, but he was doing that. And it's like, Gavril, come on now. Like, dog, you moved the first fight, man. You were very successful moving. So anyway, great performance by David Benavidez. This guy has a lot of skill. I really think he learned a lesson here as a boxing fan, and for the next generation, this young generation. He's the youngest champ out there. Or is it just U.S. champ? I don't remember. But anyway, I hope that he learned from that last fight that he doesn't need to score a knockout every time. Gavril was tough, though. The punch stats read 315 to 176, man. Benavidez landed 315 over 12 rounds. Threw 942 at a 33% connect rate compared to 757 and 23. So still an action fight, though. You got one guy throwing 942. You got the other guy 757. So both of them landed the jab pretty damn well. But either way, Benavidez, man, he looked good. He definitely looked good. Definitely looked good. I liked what I saw out of him. And I was happy because, like I said, these young fighters, it's, you know, we need as many as we can get, right, for this next generation. So very solid performance. We talked about last week how it's not always the most common thing for a young fighter to have a hard fight and rematch them right away. And we all knew he had to look good in this rematch, and he did. He did. On to the ESPN top rank card. What is it? Kavalaska? Aegis, the Mean Machine. Kavalaska, he looked pretty damn good. I did give Avanishi in the first round, actually. I thought the overhand right was the best shot of the first round. So that's why I gave it to him. Otherwise, the Mean Machine was jabbing pretty damn well. Then that's it. He dominated after that. Jab, followed by the right hand. Had a really nice counter with the right hand in the fourth round, looking at my notes. And by the third round, he started picking up the pace. Landed some hard shots. Good steady jab the whole time. Sixth round, nice right hand. Definitely hurt him, you could tell. And then with 120 left, another right hand and the left hook, TKO. It was a wrap. Really good performance there. And we'll keep note of him. It's kind of strange. So now he's 19-0 with 16 KOs. In the first handful of fights, a lot of people, it's named the Mean Machine. That's his nickname. So, you know what I mean? A lot of people were looking at this kid like, all right, this kid's got something. Then, like a lot of prospects, went through like a mediocre stage. So this one was a really good performance. So I can't wait to see more of Kavalauskas, I think it is. So yeah, I thought he looked good, man. That right hand really hurt him, and then he finished it nicely too. He was very aggressive on that finish, but not out of control. So he looked the part, no doubt about it. Obviously at 147, you might as well just mark it down, a Terrence Crawford fight at some point. But actually, I wonder where he's at in the WBO rankings, right? Because we know it's with Bob only or Warren Bob only with the WBO as far as Bob Arum and Top Rank and whatnot. The main event, Raymond Beltran against Moises. I think I was saying just straight up Moses. It's Moises, I believe. But anyway, veteran dude who really, this was a good fight, man. Once again, Beltran seemed like the favorite. He scored some highlight reel knockouts at times, but he also is a guy that, not to say him and Danny Garcia are the same or nothing like that, but he's not going to always beat dudes easy. You know, he's going to have some problems. But it took a while for him to have problems. I gave him the first 4 rounds. He actually landed a couple really good liver shots. Chopping right hands as well, early and late in the third round. I'd say he was kind of stealing rounds with his right hand, maybe the last 60 seconds or so. But by the fifth, you could see that Moises, he was getting off. He landed his own right hand, probably a minute in. Then there was an uppercut that almost dropped Beltran. I'm talking, I had to pause it, rewind it again just to make sure his glove didn't touch because it was close. It was really, really close. So the fifth round, he turned the fight around for me. He did. He really did. And although Beltran was still landing punches, they both, by the way, started getting cut in this round. Both of them started bleeding. There was, I think, the sixth round, looking at it, probably is the best two-way round up into that point. Beltran was bleeding from both eyes by that time. But yeah, the jab and uppercut and just steady work by Moises was winning them several rounds in a row. Like I said, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh on my scorecard. I just thought he was more active with a really stiff jab by that point, too. Beltran would land something nice, but it'd be only once where you could see maybe a two-punch combo from Moises. Although by the 8th, I gave Beltran the 8th, 9th, and 10th. I thought he had kind of finally got back to that right hand, and a right hand actually buckled Beltran, but he won the rest of the round, of that 9th round. So I could see if you gave Moises that round too, because, it's the biggest shot or whatever. Nice combos of hooks with both hands. And once again, that last 60 seconds, I gave him the 10th off that. Getting to the body again. Overall, a lot of misses kind of late. You could see that 12th round, they're finally like kind of tired, right? I had it 8-4 for Beltran, or 7-5, give or take. The punch stat, 197-159 in favor of Beltran. He also outthrew him 678-622. Just barely percentage-wise beat him 29-26. Scorecards read 116-112, and two of them 117-111. Now, I thought the scorecards were a little wide. I just said 8-4, 7-5, so I was okay with the 116-112, but both of them at 9-3. I'm not. No, I don't think so. I don't think that should have been that. But what are you gonna do? I thought he won the fight though. But it was good. I'm glad that Moises. I'm glad that he stood up like that, man. That was good. That was really good. He gave us a good fight. And much like on paper, like I said, I wasn't crazy about that being the main event. It's not like I didn't like the two fights. Like if that would have been a triple header, that'd have been pretty crazy. But when it's this type of main event where it's not going to draw interest, I think it was like the lowest. It was like 7. What was it? 710, 703 or something like that. Which is, I believe it's their lowest on ESPN. All three cards were low in the ratings, by the way. 703 was the average, which is the lowest. 706 was the lowest last year. It just beat 741 Ramirez card, which was a way worse card. But still, neither card blew you away, And it's a little surprising, that number, and here's why. They had a nice lead-in. That celebrity basketball NBA game, I think, if I remember, it was 1.6 or 1.7, so they dropped $1 million off of that, which is a little surprising. Not that I thought it would, rank in the million, like 1.1 or so. I thought it'd be under $1 million, no doubt. But that I didn't think it'd be the lowest one just based off the lead-in. So clearly, the casual or common fan just didn't really like who, what, where. Yeah, I don't know these guys, that type of thing. And it happens, just like I said, even to Danny Garcia. And really, let's be honest. I mean, the Danny Garcia main event was 516, and it peaked at 558, looking at it, which is probably like 150,000 lower than I thought it would be. But it's not overly surprising because nobody's excited about Garcia Rios in the main event as far as, hey, tell a friend to tell a friend type thing, right? And when you're going head up against the NBA game, or not the game, but the All-Star, the dunk contest, it's like a 2.5, 3 hour broadcast. And that thing averaged what, like 4.6 million? Not to mention the Olympics, which averaged, I think, 14 million. And when something averages 14 million, it's a good chance that it peaked at like 16, 18. I really don't know exactly what it peaked at, but there was a lot of competition that way. And that's just on NBC. There's also NBC Sports Network and the CSNBC. And so you could see the Olympics dominate right now. So there was a lot of other stuff going on. And same with the Fox card. And actually, let's get into that right now. And once again, man, I got to say, the only complaint I had about this Crossroads fight was that, you know, that it was on Fox. You know, I'd rather it be more of a legitimate fight per se, as far as meaningful. I shouldn't say legitimate, but meaningful on Fox, or just young dudes. You know, give the young dudes a try. And speaking of young dudes, they did give Caleb Plant a good look on the undercard. You know, a lot of people are kind of underwhelmed right now with him because they're like, where's that knockout power? You know, that type of thing. He's kind of going through that right now in his career, which it happens, you know, it does happen. We see that a lot. People lose interest or whatever, or say, this dude, he has no power, dude, once he steps up. But there's plenty of, you know, high level guys that don't have a ton of power. As long as you got that pop, you can go a long way. And I thought the first 2-3 rounds, he was boxing behind that jab, pot shot, right hands. That's something he did basically the whole fight, was pot shot, right hands, and jab. And movement, of course, right? Pretty damn good defense. You started seeing in the 4th and 5th round, Porky Medina, he started to land more. He still was following, but he started to actually land something. I gave him the 5th round. It was the best two-way round, I thought, of the fight. I did think he got to the body with some pretty good shots. But other than that, you couldn't really favor Medina in too many more of them. Now, there was times where he got close and landed some decent shots, but like even in that next round, the pace started heating up a little bit, and Plant responded by landing some cleaner shots. Like I said, more pot shot right hands. And by the 8th, 9th, and 10th, the pace slowed. It was kind of like one punch at a time from Plant, and that's where people get bored. And, you know, it is what it is. But as far as him handling his business, he handled his business. Some people thought he could step on the gas a little bit more. You're going to get that, like I said, and I agree. He could have. He could have put more punches together, I'd say. But we know Porky has power. We know he can be dangerous. We've learned it the last couple of years with some fights he's had. So a lot of people look at Benavidez and say, oh, Benavidez 9-punch combo going for knock him out. That's still a really good fight in my mind, because that's a style that neither have been in with each other at the pro level. But either way, he got the win, did it against a vet, had a nice audience to do it in front of. Now, the rating itself, the whole card was 3 fights. The whole card was like, I think it was like, because it came right down to the end on my DVR. It was like 2 hours and 45 minutes or something. So it was a little bit longer. I thought they'd wrap it up in like a little over 2. But they did have that 4-rounder in there with Baldros. It looked pretty good, too, as a prospect. Not going to comment too much on him just yet. Still young in his career. I don't like to go over the top with stuff like that. But the whole card averaged, so the whole, 2 hours, 45 minutes, averaged 1.1, which is pretty low. But like I said, competition head up. I didn't expect, and like I said, this was a crossroads fight of faded guys. So I didn't expect a good rating. However, it did peak at 1.5. So once those guys that people kind of like, oh, wait, I know Ortiz. Oh, wait, I know Alexander. And the main event came. It did peak at 1.5, which is a pretty good peak considering it was at 1.1. You know what I mean? And for a boxing audience in general, taking the Fox free TV out of it, it's still a nice audience, no matter how you look at it. So Plant definitely got a nice shine. Now, the Vic Ortiz and Devin Alexander fight, A lot of people were like, I don't know, dog. Like, I'm not really big on this fight. And I get it. Like I said, I even commented that I wasn't huge on it being on Fox. I'd rather it been an FS1. Maybe let a younger fighter get in there. Two younger fighters or a younger fighter going against a solid vet, a real contender type thing. Kind of like the co-feature, right? That's just my preference. Then maybe the FS1 card later. Of course, not tonight because Showtime. Or not Saturday, I should say. But you know how they'll do sometimes those Fox, and then they'll have like 2 fights, a doubleheader after. They've had a little success with that. But anyway, I got to say, it was a good fight. For those who are just commenting on it and haven't seen it, I'm not going to sit there and call out your boxing fanhood. If you don't want to watch a fight, don't watch a fight. I get it. I totally get it. It was that kind of weekend, right? However, if you did watch it, or if you're just talking, trash about what it looked like on paper, or why the hell is it on Fox, I get it. Primetime Fox seems like a waste, right? Now, financially, neither of these guys are making the money they used to, so it fits in nicely with the budget, right? And at least there's some names considering the budget. But it was a good fight, and I think the ratings showed you for it to jump to 1.5. That tells you something. It's not the fight of the year, but it was a good fight, a very good fight. It surprised me how good it was. I don't think it should have been a draw, but it was good. It actually was much better than I thought it would be because you just don't know what you're going to get out of Vic Ortiz. And when some of the going got tough as far as clean shots, and don't get me wrong, Alexander's left hand found a home a lot during that fight, he kept coming forward. I gave Alexander the first, 3 out of the first 4 rounds. The jab, the right hook, flush left hands. I mean, by the 3rd round, oh boy, Ortiz, his eye was already swollen up. Ortiz was getting to the body, landing some hooks like he does. But it wasn't having much effect because it was the slickness and speed of Alexander that was doing it. A very fun round in the 5th round, though. And to me, Ortiz, with a nice jab and some body shots, I think he stole that round. Another competitive round, though, I thought in the 6th, no doubt about it. Great uppercut. I think that was the difference there. Then I gave Ortiz the 7th. His pressure finally started paying dividends. And he started landing a nice uppercut and really good shots. And they were starting to get either good exchange where they're going back and forth, or one guy get a couple shots and then the other guy kind of go off. And so he was mixing up his attack a little bit. Both of them were obviously not as much Ortiz. It was just mostly pressure. Even in the 8th round, I thought early he landed some really good shots. But the difference in that 8th round, which probably stole the round once again, was a huge left hand by Alexander. Quick combinations, busier in the 9th. Ortiz just constant. Was more just busy, active work, I thought. Seemed like Alexander took the 10th round off a little bit. Just to be like, all right, I got to get to the 11th to 12th. Because Ortiz was bringing it. I'll give him credit in this fight. It's not really, we're critical. It's not dogging him. We're critical because it looks like some of these fights we've seen, he'll take one good shot and be like, all right, I'm good, dude. I was winning the fight, but I'm good. I'm fine. Yep, I'm good. And hey, that's probably what I do too. But I'm not getting paid as a fighter. And I'm not, he usually talks some smack too. So, but I really just thought, I almost said Alvarez, Alexander, he kind of went into pot shot mode. It's kind of a theme here tonight. But there was a fair amount of inside fighting too in this fight. And Ortiz looked pretty good to me. Now the scorecard's red, and I had it. What I have it? I had it. I had it 8-4. I had it 8-4. I could see 7-5. I don't know about a 9-3. To be honest with you, I don't think so. I think it was like 8-4, 7-5. And let's see. I almost said Alvarez again. Alexander landed 155 to Ortiz's 132. 485 outthrew him to 350. Outlanded him percentage-wise, 32% to 25. But two cards had it a draw, and then one had it for Ortiz, 115, 113. Now, maybe it's the Mexican feel there in El Paso. And if you want to see what a papered house looks like, now I don't have facts to back it up. I'm going to say that right out the jump. However, if you look at Vivid Seats, if you look at some things, I think they probably sold half of those tickets. Because there's a lot of people in that thing. I don't think everyone has comps, as we know. Of course, some media members and fans don't count comps for some reason, just the PBC comps. But my guess, if you want to look at a papered is usually like, 2,500, 3,000, and you paper it with double that, triple that. It's 8,000 people. We sold 2,700. That's papering, really. Or at least double. Or the amount you sold, you comp that many. That's papering. I would say if there ever was a papered fight from the PBC in the last couple of years, my hunch, my guess, looking at it from the barometer, so to speak, that we can, even when it comes down to when you go to Ticketmaster and you see there's little dots, blue dots, and all of a sudden you come to the next time and there's no dots anymore, and you're like, huh, okay, so why are they not showing that? Well, that tells you usually anyway that it's not selling that well. Now, there are times where the setup is just different. Staples Center, a couple of StubHub. There are some times where that happens too, where it's just a blank venue screen, where you're just looking at it and you're like, huh, okay, where's my ticket? So I'm not saying they didn't sell a ticket. They were very inexpensive too. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they did sell like 4,000 and only comp 2,000. I don't know. I don't even know. I never even got an attendance on that. And that's also kind of weird too, because they had a lot of people in that place. Wouldn't you want to say you had whatever it was? Anyway, though, they got a good show. It was a good fight. I thought Alexander should have got the nod. That's for sure. The come forward fighter tends to be helped out in this situation. That's what it felt like here. That's what it felt like to me here. So I don't know, man. I really don't know. But either way, it was a very good fight. It definitely was better than what I thought it, on paper. I really was kind of stuck on how this thing was going to turn out. I really didn't know. I was pretty stuck. Didn't really know on that one. So, and like I said, you could tell by the audience to peak to 1.5 on such a low average overall for Fox. That tells you that it kept the audience, But anywho, that about wraps up the weekend. Of course, we'll be getting into that HBO triple header. Especially Estrada and Rungvisai. Really looking forward to that fight. Ever since they popped that thing on the schedule, I've been excited, man. I've been liking it. So we're going to get into news. Then we're going to get to some callers. Then we'll get to some Estrada, Rungvisai, and whatnot. Right off the top, Andy Lee retired. He's been having problems securing fights. He was in talks with Danny Jacobs, but that fell through. unfortunately. But hey, he had a pretty good career. And, if he's ready to give it up, why not? You know what I mean? Why freaking not? So who knows? You never know. Maybe he'll get some offers and have a tune-up and come back. I don't know. But either way, it's always good to see people go out with their health and whatnot and not get like forced out of the ring. Evander Holyfield, of course, we know, or maybe you don't know, but he started a promotional company a while back. And I think some of them have been on that CBS Sports Network. But either way, he's got this tournament, this welterweight tournament. Now, before you get excited, don't get too excited. Before you get excited, don't. But it's all right. I'm not ripping the thing either. Actually, Felix Diaz and Chris Van Heerden are kind of the names that you recognize in it. So you always like the tournament, format, and if you can get some good competitive fights, we always like that. That's for damn sure. Tyson Fury was ringside of the Groves Eubank Jr. fight, right? He was ringside, and he was looking pretty slim. He was looking pretty freaking slim. He actually said that he was down to 10 stone, which whatever the hell that means. Now, I actually, I wrote, I think someone like retweeted it or something too, so I could understand what the hell 8 stone and 10 stone and 12 stone and 14 stones meant, But he's down to 262. And he fought Klitschko, which seems like 10 years ago, at 246. We've seen his face trim up. He actually even flashed. He didn't flash his stomach like he has in this when he's been making his comeback. It's been looking rough. But good for him. I'm really happy that he's kind of turned his thing around as of right now. He's definitely more positive. It seems like the depression and all the shit he was going through, whatever it was. So 262, dude, that's close, man. And he needs a tune-up or two. I'd say by next year, man, he'll be ready to take on the Anthony Joshuas and the Wilders and all that. So I'm happy for him. I just wrote that note down. So there's a couple of things, 2 more news items. One is centered around Eddie Hearn, Wilder, Ortiz, Wilder and AJ, Anthony Joshua. And we've heard of some 50-50 negotiations going on right now, which most people on the surface will say 50-50. No way. No way. Obviously, if the fight's in the UK, there's no way it could be 50-50. I don't even think it should be 50-50 here. And we've heard Eddie Hearn's side a lot lately. And lately he said that Wilder is on Fantasy Island, and maybe that's just a starting point. So they mean business. They're not going to get the 70-30 or 80-20 type, split. But Eddie Hearn, there's a couple of things. I'm going to play some audio of Richard Schaefer, by the way. Radio Raheem, Seconds Out, BoxingScene.com, did an interview with him. And it's basically his take on 50-50. And I think there's some information in there that if the fight plays in the U.S., which it's seemingly going to now, it sounds like. And here's why. I think it's going to play her because they kind of been talking about that lately. And Eddie Hearn said if Anthony Joshua comes through, right, in March, what is it, March 31st, I believe, If he wins that fight, they say that he's going to take on Big Baby Miller in Brooklyn at the Barclays. So they're literally already talking about the venue in August, that's going to be a place where Anthony Joshua fights first over here, which makes sense because it's instead of going to Vegas for this fight, makes sense just to have him cross the pond, the UK fans. It's much shorter flight. So it makes a lot of sense. Plus, the Barclays has like a nice base now that they've built up. The PBC, Ludabella, Showtime. Of course, the Barclays have been really supportive of boxing. So basically, August is going to be Anthony Joshua's next fight. It's going to be at the Barclays. And if Big Baby Miller comes through against Duhaupas, Johann Duhaupas, who, by the way, will get a full camp this time. So we can't just count that as a win. They're saying Big Baby Miller, a Brooklynite, a Brooklyn boy, so to speak, that would be his first fight here, which would make sense. It's a winnable fight. It'd be an unbeaten guy. You got the Barclays there. Like I said, shorter flight. It introduces AJ here as a fighter that's ready to move to this market as well and take over the whole world, not just the UK and in the East, I guess you could say. So the fact that he's going to fight here before a Wilder fight tells you more than likely that the Wilder fight is going to be here in Vegas. Because we all know, well, I shouldn't say we all know, but, you can really, Eddie Hearn, in a couple of different interviews, IFL and IFL TV and Beyond the Ropes today, even said it is kind of crazy. You could sell 75, 80, 90,000 tickets, but you can get similar gates, if not more, in Vegas for 18,000, And that's just something how, Cowboy Stadium, Jerry Jones made a run at Manny Pacquiao and Floyd and Canelo and Golovkin. And between what you can generate in a small venue like that and what the MGM, gives you for money, they'll outbid people. They outbid billionaires. So the combination of getting a big chunk of dough for just bringing the fight there, and then you can still make just as much, if not more, gate there. As we know, look at the gate records. They're all in Vegas by a long shot. So it's looking more and more that, one, the fight's happening here, Wilder and AJ, which makes sense because if they can get Joshua established here somewhat, then that fight can be a pay-per-view. I don't know how much it'll do, but I do know this. He's marketable, as we know. Just the commercial and hype off it alone. When you look at the combined knockouts and combined records, if they both make it, to the fight, unscathed, so to speak, that alone will get the casual fan. And ESPN will talk about this fight. It can do some business. And much like Hatton, what they say, 25, 30,000 Brits came over here. They do that in the T-Mobile, make a bunch of money, and then the closed circuit. That's another thing people don't realize, especially in the UK. Big shouts out to the UK. I'm not ripping you guys or nothing like that. It's just economics. The closed circuit, you can, $50, $75, and a bunch of places are rented out, whether it's a bar, whether it's a ballroom. They have huge screens, and a lot of people aren't even going to go to the fight, but they're going to be there for the weigh-in and the whole atmosphere of the weekend. So, because otherwise, there's really, at the Barclays, you're not going to make more money at the Barclays fighting Big Baby Miller, than you are at Wembley in the summer or wherever fighting Big Baby Miller or whoever else. You're not. You're going to make more money in the UK. But it's an investment that makes sense, though, if you are trying to do the fight here. So, boxing fans, don't get your hopes up. If Deontay Wilder doesn't take the fight and stands on the 50-50, like for good, then that's going to be an issue. However, just to hear, because we've heard Eddie Hearn a lot, Richard Schaefer's talking about a couple of different things here when it comes to the fight, right? And he makes some good points. He does make some good points. I'll say that. He does make some good points. So I'm just going to play a little bit of this audio, right? Like I said, Seconds Out, credit to Seconds Out. They usually, Radio Raheem's everywhere. They also post it on BoxingScene.com. Schaefer just talks about the different revenues on pay-per-view as well. And he gives you a little bit more insight on it. And I think it's interesting. Like I said, doesn't mean I think 50-50 is legit. I'm just giving you a balance of both sides, right? And obviously, Wilder is not a huge star here, but he does create, some energy. He's been in front of some larger audiences, and he does put butts in the seats. Now, he doesn't, only Canelo can put stadium butts, but he does. This gate, they're going to have a nice gate at this last Barclays fight, I'll tell you that. So it's just a little bit seeing both sides of it. So I'm going to play some audio. Like I said, credit to Radio Raheem. Dudes everywhere. Seconds Out. They posted on BoxingScene.com as well. So I'm going to play a little bit about that. Then we're going to catch you up on the Golden Boy Lomachenko Linares, some recent quotes from BoxingScene.com as well. Then we're going to get to the callers and break down some of this Estrada Rungvisai, dude. I'm looking forward to that fight. But here we go. Richard Schaefer talking about the whole reason why even 50-50 is possible, which could be a point of we're starting at 50-50, so it's a negotiation point too. Let's keep that in mind.
Wilder, of course, is an anticipated fight coming up, but the negotiations, money-wise, seem to be really back and forth, very tight. Wilder says that 50-50 is the only split he'll take. That makes sense to him. That's fair to him. As a promoter, how do you think a split for a fight like this would be fair? Which way would you go?
I think the fair split is 50-50 because it's one of those fights where Anthony Joshua adds to the equation as much as Deontay Wilder does. And, let's look at something else. Deontay Wilder does bring the U.S. market. And it's nice, I'm pretty familiar now with the UK market since we are promoting there under the Haymaker Ringstar banner a number of events. We had one last Saturday. So, the monies in the UK are nowhere close to the monies which can be generated, particularly at the highest level here in the United States. So the key to the kingdom here for a truly super mega pay-per-view event in the heavyweight division, that key is held by Deontay Wilder. And because of that, he deserves a 50-50 split. And because of what Anthony Joshua brings to the table, he brings another pool of revenues, like we've seen with Ricky Hatton when he fought Floyd Mayweather. He brings the Brits. He brings the British pay-per-view market. And because of that, and the fact that he is a multiple belt holder in the heavyweight division, he deserves 50-50. But, if you look at the pay-per-view numbers in the UK, in the UK, a pay-per-view costs 17 or 18 pounds, with about 10 pounds net going to the promotion. The rest is taken up by the TV networks and the distributors. So you have about 10 pounds, which is $14, going to the promotion, meaning the fighters and the promoter. And you look at that, and so you have an Anthony Joshua fighting on pay-per-view over there, right? It's called Sky Box Office, and he does between 500,000 homes and let's say 800,000 homes. You know, I think the biggest one he ever did was the Klitschko one, which is a bit over 1 million homes. So even if you take 1 million homes pay-per-views times $14, that's $14 million in pay-per-view revenues. Now you compare that to the U.S. You know, on the U.S., a big fight, let's take a Canelo fight, for example. Let's say you do 1 million homes here, okay? And the fight is, I don't know how much it's going to be, probably $70, $69.95. So I have no idea, but I'm just using as an example. And let's say half of that goes to the networks and the cable systems, and the other half, in this example, $35, goes to the promoter, right? So you have to compare the $35 per home here in the United States with the $14 per home in the UK. So if you do the same amount of homes, 1 million homes in the UK is 14 million. 1 million homes in the United States is 35 million. That's substantially more. And because Anthony Joshua can have a pay-per-view here in the US, no question about it, but he cannot have a mega pay-per-view like he can with the Deontay Wilder. That is why both of them are equally important to make this a success. And that's why they deserve a 50-50 split.
When it comes to where the fight would physically take place, there's some debate there as well. I mean, we've seen Joshua sell out huge arenas in a matter of minutes. He's consistently packing seats, and we even have heard Eddie Hearn give the criticism like people in America don't know who Wilder is, and he was stopping people on the street and asking them in New York if they knew who Deontay Wilder was. Where do you think that this fight should live? Where could this fight be had?
Well, I mean, that's an easy decision as well. Again, you look at the dollar numbers. So yeah, they sell out venues in the UK, but the money you can generate in those venues are a fraction of what you can generate if you sell out the T-Mobile Arena. I mean, you look at the numbers. I mean, in boxing globally, the biggest gates were produced in Las Vegas. So this is a Vegas fight. This is a Vegas pay-per-view fight, and financially it will be a big success. Yeah, it's nice to fight in Wales and sell out in minutes. Is that because they priced the tickets too cheap, or is it just because I don't know? I mean, because obviously Joshua is a huge star, but I mean, selling out in minutes is not really.
So anyway, it keeps going on, and obviously that's where the U.S. promoter comes in, right? Where that thing where you go, yeah, but did they have the tickets too cheap? You know what I mean? That type of thing, especially the higher up ones. You know what I mean? At just that greed, where it's like, well, do you want more people or do you want more? Kind of like this Garcia Rios fight in Vegas. They overpriced them, but if you sell 4,500, 5,000 tickets at that price, you're still doing a pretty nice gate. Whereas you could, have it 25, 50, 100, and 200 instead of 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 and do more people, But it doesn't mean you're going to do more gate. So, yeah, I'm not saying I still think that it's not a 50-50. I still don't think that. You know what I mean? I don't think that. But, to have a pay-per-view here, he does have to have Deontay Wilder. I think that's true. Now, whether that's worth 50-50 or not, I don't think so, because I still think it's a point of reference to start the negotiation. And I also think it's building it, because now they're going to be like, oh, because for a while, AJ looked like he didn't want the fight, right? From some comments and whatnot. And even if they take on Big Baby Miller in August here, one side's going to say, what the hell? You're going to fight Baby Miller? You're milking this shit. Now, what are you going to fight, a Mando next? That type of thing, right? But in the same side of things, if Wilder is asking for 50-50, that's some bullshit ducking the fight too, because he's never done a pay-per-view here. Now, like I said, he does put some butts in the seats. He does. He does well for a U.S. fighter anyway. And he's been in front of some nice audience on television. And even his highlight knockouts do go viral, clearly. But, you know, the gate would be huge here because of Anthony Joshua. Because the Brits, it'd be different. It would be different because Mayweather, you know, when he fought Hatton, he's coming fresh off the Oscar fight. So he was all of a sudden a gate attraction now and a pay-per-view attraction. Where that's not necessarily, well, that's not the case with Wilder. He could sell some gates, but it wasn't, he didn't just come off a fight with Oscar or a guy. Obviously, he's not going to fight Oscar, but you know what I mean. That type of name. So, whereas Ricky Hatton came over here, and I think they gave his fans like 8,000 tickets. Because remember, they had that huge freaking section. Not to say that they couldn't buy him in other places, but it's the closed circuit money as well. You can draw just getting people in. And it did over 1 million in pay-per-view, did Mayweather in Hatton over there at 4 a.m. So they're still going to have revenue over there. That thing's doing 1 million in my mind, even at 4 a.m. because of there's some anticipation in this fight. The Klitschko fight just kind of came out of left field as like, oh shit, they may do this fight. Then it was like, oh, this fight's happening. And they built it up really nicely. But either way, you're gonna get some money over there too. And like I said, the gate will be, most of the gate will be, you know, the ticket prices and all that. That'll have a lot to do with Anthony Joshua because he could sell out the arena. I mean, we're gonna see it at the Barclays. Obviously, those are going to be priced differently than the Wilder fight in Vegas. Those would be more high, but you know, we're going to see it. It's going to be the biggest gate and the biggest audience that the Barclays Center non-Nets game. That'll be the biggest one, hands down. I definitely believe that because I think he'll be able to get enough interest here. They already have a Barclays built-in fan base that'll be pumped about it. They've been seeing Deontay fight there. They're about to see him again. I think that could do good business. So, like I said, I'm not saying I agree with everything Richard Schaefer just said, but he makes some points, and that's why I think they're even talking about maybe trying to potentially, anyway, do a 2-fight deal. One here and then one over in Wembley the next summer. So maybe in December they do it here, and then in the summer, you know, I don't know. But either way, just something to think about. He does make some points when it comes to that. And the fact that Eddie's already got Big Baby Miller lined up potentially in the Barclays Center in August, he's already talking about it, kind of tells you that he's going to get him here established. And I think that's smart. If they want to do it on pay-per-view, they have to get Anthony Joshua to fight here first. I do believe that. Or, like I said, the other option was, you know, have this fight that's happening in March, put it on CBS during the afternoon and hope for a bigger rating or something like that, you know. But I do think that, you know, that tells you it's going to be on pay-per-view here. It's a worthy pay-per-view fight, no doubt about it. You got a guy who's the second biggest star in boxing, maybe the biggest. We'll see. I say Canelo just because if you look at the gates and you look at the pay-per-views here and the revenue, that's what we're going to find out. But it does make me excited that they're building to it, though, for real. A lot of people are going to be pissed, and they want you to get pissed, too. Remember that. This thing's not going to drag out for years and years. It's just starting to now drag. People are just starting to want this fight, really want it. So they know that. So why not have Wilder be the dummy at 50-50? Oh, he don't want the fight because of 50-50, right? Play that role. And I think it's a negotiation tool to start at 50-50, like I said. And why not have, you know, the flip side of it Eddie fighting Eddie fighting other dudes, or not Eddie, but Eddie, saying, well, Wilder don't want the fight. We're going to fight these guys. And they're going to be like, oh, Big Baby Miller's fat and this and that. And, you're ducking them. And what's next? You're going to fight, I can see both sides ripping each other. And in the end, that builds a fight. Point blank, it does. As long as they make the fucking fight, right? I'm actually not that pissed at it. Because, I'm just, over the years, I've just adjusted. At some point, I adjusted. I think it was like late 90s. I adjusted myself as a fan. Where it's just like, dog, this is a business. Think like that. And you won't be pissed as much, right? It sucks, no doubt about it, but Wilder's never been on pay-per-view over here. And people don't really know Joshua yet. So, but you get him here in front of an audience, you get him here in front of a boxing crowd, get him on some media here, you keep Deontay going, it'll happen. I really believe that. But you got to be able to sell it on pay-per-view to make it worthy to be over here. Otherwise, it'd be sweet if they could put it, over in Wembley, obviously. But that, to me, I just think that Vegas lure is too much. Eddie's not a dummy, obviously. Eddie knows that the money is here when push comes to shove, especially when he's going to be the biggest part of it. They're going to be the biggest part of the gate coming over. They'll be responsible for the gate mostly. Like I said, Wilder does good numbers. You got Golovkin, Canelo as far as gate numbers. Now, Ramirez sells some tickets, but like I said, look at the overall revenue of that. A lot of people can sell tickets if you sell them for 25, 50, 100. I wish more fights were like that. But let's just be honest, the gates, you got to look at the gate revenue. So we'll see. Just the food for thought real quick. 310, I'm about to let you in here in just a second. I am going to shut down the live stream on YouTube, just so you know. By the way, if you want to keep listening, you can call 646-381-4990. That's 646-381-4990. Or use the link right inside the box. Maybe you're listening to it in a couple of days. It's really Thursday, it's Friday, it's Saturday from now, right? In the future. Just hit that link. It'll give you the full archived episode. All right? So I appreciate it.